Hey there, how's it going?
I'm so sorry. I'm a little extra late too. I was like, no, I
It's
just had
okay.
to refine the link.
That is okay. Do you do podcasts or?
I used to do podcasts where like I had my own with a different place I was working at, and then
Uh-huh.
I jump on podcasts. I was on another one this morning,
Okay.
so
Yeah, I
I
saw your
do
story. I was like,
them.
that's a good podcast setup. Most people I get on, they're like a really like weird background or something. I'm like, you know what you're doing. So we're
Oh
gonna have a
yeah.
good
The
time.
only thing I want to fix is that I need to get this okay a little bit more. Hold on, I just got to do this. I got to move you further away from me on that camera because I have my whatchamacallit. Hey, let's do that. Move that. Okay. But I want to be able to see you. So I can do that. I just want my eye line better. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
you're
so
good.
much better. Okay.
Solid. Okay, so yeah, what I'm kind of like to do before I get into these is just like share as much as you're willing to share. Really, the goal of this podcast is we want to share stories to relate to other people that have ADHD that are going to be watching this. So share,
Yes.
like, be as open as you want to be, and be as closed as you want to be. This is kind of like a safe space. So I really kind of, we have like a structure that I go through. We can kind of go off tangent as much as we want. But it's just kind of talking before, during, after. And we'll kind of go through and you'll see how the structure works. And if you want to just go off on random side tangents and tell funny stories, just like the goal is just to relate. And you seem like a
Yes.
very relatable person, so I think we'll be set with that.
And I'm very much so an open book. There's really
Cool.
nothing because that's a big part of the style I coach anyway too. It's like we are all so similar. It's not even funny. And
Yeah.
what helped me the most is I don't do well when people are just like everything's great and my life is great and I've had no problems. I'm
Yeah.
like, no.
Yeah. Yeah. We're here to
So
talk about the bullshit. Like we really want to
yes,
dig into it for
the
sure.
real authentic stuff.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so we'll hop in here. Give me 1 sec. Let me make sure everything's recording.
Mhm.
And 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, everybody, to the ADH Doers podcast. I'm your host, RJ, and we have our first ever special guest, Natalie Stavola. Is that how you say it?
That's it. You nailed
Oh,
it.
perfect. I
Stavola.
got it. Actually, I have to be honest with you. I stalked your Instagram and I knew how to say it, but sometimes I just do that. So I like to
Yeah.
start the podcast hopping into a question instantly about ADHD. What brings you more ADHD, like dopamine hit type stuff? Is it coaching,
Mhm.
acting, stand-up comedy, boxing, hip hop dancing, or something else that I missed?
Oh, I mean, pretty much all of those. That's why I do them. You literally listed those like, yeah, those, all of them every day at the same time.
Is there something else that you do that is like, because a very ADHD fashion is to, for those who don't know, is just to be everywhere all at once. We're kind of the jack of all trades, but it's
Yes.
kind of like the way that we can fill up that dopamine cup in a way. Is there something outside that you don't post on your Instagram or anywhere else that like really gives you that dopamine?
Um, let's see. I do like mastermind style of meetings where it's all about like spirituality and kind of like what you're going through, and then you talk in solution. That one gets me high on life like it's nobody's business.
Wow.
I walk in and I'll be having like a rough day or I'm going through something, and I go to this meeting and it's like, woo, like straight into the veins. I'm like, ooh, I'm ready for more. Like, who needs a solution? You need a solution. You need a solution. Like, pop, 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 pop. I'm all over. And it's that. And then there's snowboarding. Snowboarding is a big one. I have to
Ooh.
be careful with the dopamine hits because they feel so good that like
Mhm,
I like the crashes. And a lot of people know this with the ADHD too, is like
mhm.
those crashes and any perceived like rejection sensitivity will get
Yeah.
me like whoom, crashing low where I have to be very mindful of like balancing and not hitting too much dopamine, but like balancing it with like the Zen stuff.
Yeah, I
That
get you. I get you. I really wanted to go into snow. So I live in Colorado, which is like snowboarding central, right? And the first question I get asked every time someone says, "Oh, you're
is
from
what's
Colorado."
your address and when am I showing up? No,
Yeah. How close are you to Aspen or like how
right?
like but
Do
like
you know
I
about Steamboat?
yes. I busted both of my knees and my ankle. So like I
Oof.
can't I know I have friends that just love snowboarding. They want to invite me all the time, but I'm like, bro, I don't know if I could do that. So like I have to find it in different ways here because it's like that's the shit out
Oh
here. You come
man.
out and it's like that's all you can do, but I got no knees basically, so I can't
I
do that.
Yeah, I had issues with my knees growing up and from dancing and everything, and they're really bad. But I actually had a friend of mine who was like a physical therapist, but who specialized in like behind the muscle issues, fixed
Ah,
my knee. And then I have busted my ankle really bad. I was on crutches for like 3 months. And I'm very big on like get back on the horse.
yeah,
Otherwise, you might be afraid of the horse.
yeah,
But
me too.
look, there are times where I'm getting up the mountain and I'm on the lift and it's the first run of the day and
Yeah,
I'm literally in my head going, what the am I doing? Why am I
yeah.
doing this? If I take myself out on snowboarding, I'm not going to be able to act on camera. Like I'm not like what am I doing here? And then the moment that that board hits that powder and I'm there, it's like my brain goes
On.
quiet, the
Yeah.
zen happens. And with ADHD too, I didn't know this until um fairly recently, but I'm a speed demon. I
Hmm.
grew up like speeding, going 100 miles an hour to 120 miles an hour a lot. And I lived in Florida at the time when I had my driver's license. So it's just straight roads and go. Like I
Oh,
didn't even notice that I was speeding, but I would
yeah.
get like a speeding ticket in every county I was in when I was like driving to college from home. And I didn't realize that for ADHDers, speed, not doing speed, but like, which makes sense, but
Yeah,
uh,
maybe.
makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
right? But things in fast paced and ba 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 ba, it's
Hmm.
actually like because our brains already operate at that speed,
Hmm.
it feels like slow motion. And so
Yeah.
snowboarding is something that like one of the bigger ones for me that honestly I have to like it is a
Mm.
non-negotiable when it starts snowing. I have to go because that slows me down. It slows my brain down, and it's like doing 20 hours of meditation for me.
Wow. Yeah, I can relate so much to that. It's like when you say the speed stuff, I lost my license because I sped too much. Because I got, you know what my thing was when I couldn't go snowboarding was cars. Like I love just like I get in a car,
Yeah,
roll the window down. Like I drive manual, so it's just like a
same.
whole,
Not
it's a
right now, but I
great
used to.
thing. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it works so good with the ADHD mind too, right? Because it's like I love to say it's like you need to create distractions so you don't get distracted. So it's like that driving stick is like, okay, I got to shift, clutch in, wait, what gear am I in? Oh, I got to shift here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would do that so often that I would realize that it was so funny. Everyone's like, oh, it's probably all this street racing that you did. I was like, fun fact, I never got caught street racing. It was always when I was just
Same.
cruising. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm like, it's
They
right when
didn't
my
catch me
brain
on the
turns
power
off.
line roads.
Yeah. And they ain't gonna. Just kidding. This is we're not saying to speed. We're not saying to speed.
Don't do that.
Yeah,
Yes.
don't, not at all. So Natalie, really what I want to do is kind of dig into your journey when it comes to ADHD. I think the first and most important thing to ask is like when we're like talking, if you're listening at home and you're like, what is this ADHD thing? I hear about it a lot. We've seen it all over the internet. But like, do I have it? Because there's times, right, where it's like I there's things in the ADHD world that gets so weird, right? It's like we don't want to say, "Well, do you sneeze on Tuesday? You probably have ADHD." It's like,
Right?
no, like that's not
Blink.
yeah. What do you blink? That's probably, but like we want to find those relatability things, right? Where it's like in your life before you found out you had ADHD, when you look back, let's say to childhood, to college,
Yeah.
before the diagnosis, what were your like? Oh, that was ADHD right there. Like, do you have
Yes.
any specific stories or anything that you can think of from that?
There's two right now that are coming to mind. So back in the day, and a lot of people might not know this who are kind of newly coming into ADHD. So I have a background in psychology too. So
Oh,
mind you, I
cool.
knew about abnormal psych and neurodivergence, although I don't think we had that term back then. I can't remember. No, I don't think so. So there's still like new things happening. But back then, what we had was we had it differentiated. We had ADD and then
Mm-hmm.
ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a delineation, there was a difference, and anyone who was like hyperactive was automatically diagnosed. And there was a lot of misdiagnoses happening too, to be honest, because we did load our kids up with a bunch of sugar and then give them
Yeah.
Ritalin, and then you know what I mean, there was an overprescription.
Yeah.
ADHD, I think Gabermator, oh god, I'm butchering his name, but he's one of my favorites. PhD, he talks about it like a lot of it does can come from trauma and taking on the anxiety of your parents and having to be hyper vigilant. The main two things, because people used to laugh at me and joke that I was ADHD or ADD girl. They
Mm-hmm.
called me ADD girl growing up. And then like when I moved to LA, I had a coach, an acting coach that called me ADD girl. And I was like, I don't have ADD. And he goes, squirrel. I'm like, what? And
Yeah.
I no, but he did that all the time, and I had no
Yeah.
idea. But he would, how I would combat it and how I would say, like, no, I don't have that is growing up, I actually hyper focused. I taught myself how to hyper focus. But I only really did that with books, with romance novels specifically, or
Interesting.
sci-fi.
That's
So
cool.
I escaped because there was chaos around me. And when I'm around chaos, it actually is very familiar. I noticed that later on when like I
Mm,
wound up getting sober and going and I was so, when I was around chaos, I was actually able to concentrate more. So I actually learned from a young age how to hyper focus because I needed to dissociate and I needed to stay safe and I needed
yeah.
to like escape the surroundings. So I taught myself how to like hyper focus. Years later, it doesn't work as much anymore. I actually struggle to focus on books now, which really crushes my heart. I'm
Mm,
trying to relearn. But now recently, when I did get diagnosed, like officially, because I still didn't believe that I had it, um, it did turn out that they did change it to where it's ADHD and then ADD is one of the subsets. So you can have the two types, but the main heading is ADHD.
mhm.
It can just manifest different ways. The two things that really gave me this sense of relief that I was like, oh, was one, the hyper focus
Mm,
that gave me a lot of clarity and it's a superpower, you can activate. I can use that in different things.
very much so.
The other one is the decision making. That used to make me feel so off and so less than, especially when you have your own company, you have your own coaching, you
Mm,
have your own this, you have
right.
whatever, or even just showing up for things. When people would ask me to make a decision, I would literally kind of start shaking and making like final decisions was something that like I really didn't understand that like I couldn't do. And when I got diagnosed and I started really researching this, I found out that it's executive functioning,
Yep.
that we have issues with executive functioning, and that there's also ways to offset it.
Mm,
Things that I can say to myself now, things that I can do to where like I can now make decisions, or certain techniques that I've got that I help other people with in coaching to see like your cons and your pros and pros list, excuse me, your pros and
right.
pros list of like
Okay.
decision making for things. So there's tips and tricks now, but that gave me the most relief of like, oh, that's why I can't handle my laundry. And we can make jokes about it. Or that's why like I honestly can't, like I will shake sometimes and get really nervous if I have to make a decision because my brain goes I'm
Mhm.
like, there we go, got it.
Yeah. Sometimes always think it's like it's a smart overload at sometimes, right? So it's like, here's a great example. I'm gonna throw my girlfriend under the bus, but she
Love it.
loves it. I know.
No, no, I'm
She
kidding. Don't
just
worry.
got
Don't worry, I'll
diagnosed with,
coach him.
yeah, right. She just got diagnosed with ADHD probably like last year. So it's
Yeah.
fairly new for her when I'm coming up on like 15 years. And we're working
Yeah.
out, we're like selling this car, we're doing this thing. And I was like, all right, look, I've sold 1,000 cars in my life. I'm putting this on you. You give me like and I'll jump in, right? And we're going through and it's like, okay, this guy is trying to negotiate the price. We're going back and forth. We're like, all right. And I'm like, it's kind of fun. This is interesting. And I was like, yeah, I'm
Okay.
not sure if that's going to work. Like, balls in your court. And she just kind of sits there and is like, how, what do we do? And I'm like, you choose. Right. And so she
Yeah.
walks away. And then the guy, all of a sudden I'm like, I don't know. I might've taken that deal. She goes, what? She stops the guy getting in the car. She goes, I want it. Let's do the deal. Let's do the deal. And it's one of those things where it's like, she comes back and is like, oh my gosh, like, what's this indecisiveness? And I'm like, here's the thing when it comes to that decision making, that back and forth, is that our brains move so fast where we thought of not two different decisions.
Oh
Let's
my
be
God.
honest. It wasn't, do I take it or do I not take it?
Right?
It's like,
That already was before you even walked in the door.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, if I take it, then what is this going to do with this? But what if the car breaks down? But then about the, and it's like this actual, like, serious thinking thing, right? Where it looks, when you look outside, right? It's like, hello, what's going on? But like internally, that it's like that brain is moving, and going,
Yes.
right? Where there's good things where that can happen, right? Where it's like, okay, you know what? I have thought in my businesses alone, right? I have thought of probably everything under the sun. So
Yep.
I can, one, get less surprised easily. And two, when it comes, I'm like, oh, that's like half of what I was already thinking. So boom, like here we can just kind of adjust as we go, right?
Yes.
And it gets
Oh
this
yeah.
weird back and forth where you're like, okay, yeah, there's times where it's like, we need a decision right now. Like, are we getting Chick-fil-A or are we eating at home? Well, if I had Chick-fil-A, then you're going back and forth, but it's like, at the end of the day, I used to coach people with ADHD. I said, if the chaos works for you, then it works.
And it works.
it works, right? It's like
Absolutely.
we have seen success in this. When you talk about
Yeah.
acting and being an actress and everything like this, we see like some of the most successful people have ADHD. Did anyone ever heard of
Yes.
like Jim Carrey by chance? Like homeboy he is the definition of
Oh,
ADHD,
he's huge in
yet
it.
he
Yeah.
crushes his roles. When you see like, because we all see the outside of like what ADHD looks like. Jim Carrey's very like colorful, out there, everything. But behind the
Yes.
scenes, the things that we don't see from actors and actresses, how does your ADHD play a role in that? Because I'm sure that like, I'm not going to pretend like I know everything about this stuff, but I'm sure that there's multiple takes that you need to have. There's a lot of memorization that you need to have. There's getting in a certain mood. Like if you need to
Yeah.
get into like pissed off mood, but you're in a good mood, like there's probably a lot of different things that your ADHD can play a role in positively and negatively as an actress. Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah. With that one, I would say that because the superpower uh is the hyper focus,
Mm-hmm.
that's given me the ability to I memorize very easily
Mm.
when I'm doing that. It used to be because like, that people pleasing side of things too, of wanting to fit in. For instance, one of the things with ADHD is I didn't know this, but I never had a filter. I did not know that a part of it was also ADHD, but
Mm.
I don't have a filter. I've had to learn how to pause and think first, because this, like if we share like why we're not sure whether we want to eat at home or Chick-fil-A, people are going to think we're crazy. And then we
Yeah.
have to skip some sentences and
Yeah.
fill you in on something else because our brain's
Yeah.
already like connected the dots on something. And I forgot to fill you in on X, Y, and Z sentence. And now you're
Yeah.
looking at me like I'm crazy. But how
Yeah.
are you not following my train of thought that we got to like, now I'm going to be late for work because I chose Chick-fil-A? Like, how did
Yeah.
you, why do I have to explain that? How did you
Yeah.
not,
Dude, keep up with me, dog. Come on.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Literally.
And then they ask a question. I'm like, yo, I'm already past that. I already made the decision, or I
Yeah.
didn't, or now I have sleep paralysis, but now I've chosen something else. And now where are my keys? What are we
Yeah.
doing?
Exactly.
So the cool part is that like I would try and fit in. And one of the things that like I had a cool little unique little gift talent on was like memorizing, and for some reason memorizing lyrics. Music and
Wow.
lyrics were always something that stuck in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's the beat, it's that repetitive thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Me
like
too.
when the
I'm the
beat,
same way.
right? So there's
Mm-hmm.
certain things with like our brain, it's like a massage for the brain. Like when the beat goes da 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 da, and it's like you notice that anyone with ADHD is like,
Yeah. Yeah.
So something
2,
about like
3 into the
needing to hear
phone.
things, yes, and needing to hear all of the words.
Mm-hmm.
It just became this like thing where people would challenge me, and I would learn all the Eminem lyrics. I was very big into rapping, and then I did like Overnight Celebrity by Twista, and like I memorized these things. So flash forward to now is that hyper focus and ability to like, I need to know the words and I need to know every detail.
Mm-hmm.
I have to. It helps in that, and then there's different like techniques. I will say that the rejection sensitivity and any fears that I have, I notice when I'm not doing my work or when I'm scared is, let's say that I do need to work on a piece of material, I'll watch myself pace around the room for hours, and I mean hours. So in front of the camera, I've already been rehearsing it and doing it and working with people and working with a coach and writing it out and doing the things and doing what I need to do for my brain in order that when I'm there, I can already drop in because I have my little cues and things. And also too, we do have the ability to like we do feel things very deeply.
Yeah,
that is
very
one
much so.
element of us, is we
Very
do feel.
empathetic individuals.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I might be laughing, and then but if the scene's about like someone dying, it's like I feel that instantly because it's right in front of you. It's right there.
Interesting.
So
I
you can
like
do it
that.
pretty fast.
Okay.
But behind the scenes is definitely the battle is decision making on like, which script am I going to pick up, which audition, which project do I do now. I'm producing and writing, but the creative process allows that zen, that like that you get some hits of the dopamine with that.
Yeah.
And then I remind myself the way that I feel when I do finish an audition, or I do finish a script, or I do read something, I feel so good. So that helps me when I'm pacing around and I'm like, what we do, like I'll be like, oh, I'll sit down and read this, but first let me get my coffee, and then I'm going to get my coffee, but I forgot that actually I really wanted to go wash my hands first. Now I'm going to wash my hands, but I forgot that there's this cloth over here that I was supposed to throw over here. So now, oh shoot, I forgot to do my laundry, I'm supposed to put that over here, and wait, and all of a sudden it's been 3 hours and I haven't sat down to
You're like, wait, what was I doing in the first place? Oh, it was coffee.
right.
Yeah. And you're like, they completely forgot the
Oh
script
God,
stuff.
yeah. Now I'm
Yeah.
out the door and I'm having brunch and it's the next day and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You got me.
You
My
got
brain tricked me. You did it. I'm not even mad. I'm impressed. I'm not
yeah,
even mad.
I mean, honestly, it's
Right.
impressive. Yeah, it's really cool to see, like, because I read this book. It's called The ADHD Advantage, and he
Ooh,
talks
oh
about like,
yeah.
have you read that book?
I've heard that one's on
Okay.
my list.
Okay, cool. So I won't give away too much, but he was talking about like how our ADHD ancestors, if you would, they thrived in a different way because when it comes to like being quick on our feet, when it's like, okay, I'm just going to impulsively make a decision. And right now we see that nowadays, like impulse on Amazon doesn't help us as much as it did when we were like in the ancient times, right? Because it's like he was saying, like if our ancestors were going back in time, they're getting chased. They need to
Right.
make that impulse decision to go, I'm gonna jump and just hope that this lake isn't filled with sharks, or I'm just gonna like actually sit and analyze. He said that actually made it an advantage to us. And like when it comes to the things that you're doing, right? Stand up, coaching, acting, there's a lot of like boom, 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 quicking on your feet type things because someone says, you go into a group coaching call and you have no idea what people are going to be saying. And then you have to have that quick response of analyze in my brain as someone's talking, you're starting to think of what to say. Or stand-up comedy, someone gets up and heckles you or whatever thing. That's why I see on TikTok. I don't know if it
Oh
happens to
yeah.
everybody, but like you can go get a load of this guy type of thing where you can go really quick. But then you also have those moments where I think that although we can be known as emotional human beings, I was actually, when I was watching your Instagram, I saw there was a clip where you were like arguing in a scene and you were just like in this
Oh yeah.
intense, like, and I was like, I can relate. So I do a lot of content. That's really what I do. And I use like acting type skills that I've learned in improv classes and stuff into that.
Nice.
And I really can sense myself changing like into this emotion so well. Like I get so into it where it's like you're in the fighting scene and it's like for a quick moment you believe that you fucking hate this dude. Like he cheated on you, whatever he did, right? You can like really
Yeah.
get into that. And I think that's like one of those good things when it comes to how our brains work is that we can be so creative, but then sometimes to pull ourselves out of that can be like a different challenge in itself, you know?
Yes, that. So I heard someone else talk about it too. This guy from Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. He was like one of the bad guys. He was the guy that was like the owner of the chicken place. And I
Yeah.
heard him speak recently, and he's like, someone asked him, they were like, "Oh, how do you play a role? Like, what are you thinking about like when you've got a scene where you're gonna murder someone?" He's like, "How I'm gonna murder you?" And the person like laughed uncomfortably. He's like, that's
Yeah.
literally what I'm thinking.
Right.
But he said, though, they asked him, they're like, do you carry that home? And he was like, no, because I have a way out and a way of like, there's like a ritual out. And those
Mm.
rituals are really important, like, especially for those of us that can get really scattered and overwhelmed. Sometimes a ritual can help a lot where it's like, when I'm done with a scene, and especially if it's an intense one, I
Yeah.
go immediately into like very much so like self-nurturing and very, very, very positive affirmations even when my ADHD is getting loud and I'm getting overwhelmed or sensory overload or anything like that, the fastest way out for me is actually when I start nurturing myself and I start speaking to myself with so much kindness and respect and love. And I go, hey, you're okay. You're
Mm.
safe. It's okay. And maybe I wasted a little bit of time. Maybe I started going because I also have OCD and some
Mm.
other things. I have CPTSD, OCD, ADHD. Like I got the whole addiction, alcoholism. I'm
Yeah.
clean and sober 6 years. Like
That's
we
awesome.
got the whole, we got the list.
Yeah.
And so sometimes like one thing will trigger the other and the other thing will trigger, and then there's a domino effect. Now I'm like,
Yeah.
so the fastest way through, especially when my ADHD is like, it can make you feel bad sometimes. I'm not gonna lie about it. At least
Yeah.
for me, I can't, attest to
Yeah.
anyone else's
Yeah.
experience. The fastest way for me has been when I'm like, hey, you're okay.
Mm.
You got this. You're safe. The past is not your present. It's okay. You're doing such a wonderful job. I'm proud of you, Natalie. You're doing a phenomenal. And it settles and it makes my body and it releases the tension. So whenever I'm done with that scene or carrying that thing or having those emotional like charges, what it does is it makes your body tense. And so I don't carry it anywhere else or accidentally give that to someone else
Yeah.
or create a sabotage in my life. Like I'll nurture myself out of that and just leave it right there where I'm like, I'm proud of you. You did great. You did such a beautiful job. Like you're good. You're safe. Where are your feet? My name is Natalie Stavola. My feet are here. What day is it? I'm grounded. I'm safe. And I'll do like that kind of grounding.
Yeah.
And then it releases you back in, which I know for meditation is super important and really helpful for our brains.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so powerful. I learned some similar to this strategy. I actually learned a lot inside of, well, everyone learned a lot in COVID, but like I learned a lot in COVID
Wow.
and in the, I know, and in the 9 to 5 world. There's this thing that we do as ADHDers that we don't think about, and that's having clear transitions from day to day stuff, right? So
Yeah.
here's a great example. Like when I worked at I was working at a pool, right? And I would come home from work and I would be in like the shirt and the swimsuit, and I would just sit home, and I just felt like, I was like, why can't I feel like me right now? I just feel so
Mm.
weird as this, like, I don't know what it is. And during COVID too, when it's like when everyone was locked down and stuck at home, it was like I slept and I woke up and I wore the same clothes that I woke up in. And then I would just like chill and go out throughout the day. And I'm like, okay, should I change to go to bed? Like I was just, I
Right.
guess I would. And what I learned is that although yes, changing is important because we need to do laundry, like obviously we want to have a different outfit or whatever. But like the real thing that I learned was like transition of like,
Oh
we
yeah.
need to like actually have a clear and conscious transition sometimes in life, where it's like, I need to go from podcast mode. This is a great example. Like I need to go from podcast mode. So like, what am I doing? I'm setting up my lights in a certain way. Like I'm getting kind of like chill and relax into podcast mode. But when I go into business owner mode, I need to have a clear transition. And it's like,
Right.
it's sometimes as crazy as like changing, or sometimes it's like what you do of like, okay, just got this done. So now I'm going to complete this thought in my head by doing this one thing. And then now I know I need to do X, Y, Z throughout the day, and just like make that conscious effort. And sometimes we can have
Yes.
these blurred lines of that. And that's why sometimes we feel so hectic. I love that strategy that you say of the grounding, which I've heard. And sometimes it's so strange because people out there, like, they think it's so simple, but sometimes just doing that, of being like, I'm safe, I'm okay, I have my own 2 feet on, I'm just, oh, I'm breathing, I can get a full breath of oxygen, or maybe 75%. It's better than an anxiety attack. When you say, because you talked about addiction and stuff, did you learn that through those dark times, or where did you learn to do that?
Oh yeah. I have a background in psychology and communications and stuff, but even then having the knowledge, I didn't understand how to integrate it. So what was happening is that the
Ah.
voices in my head were very loud and very negative.
Mm.
And I had no idea how powerful that is, how it can destroy you or uplift you. ADHD is going to be there. I'm going to have that, but I
Yeah.
can either be empowered by it and inspired by it and work with it, or I can be destroyed by it. And personally, like you said, I do think that being an addict and having that mind and having like PTSD and on trauma and all that kind of stuff, because their healing is possible.
Yep.
I do think that having ADHD, I do think that having all these things and the way our minds work is a superpower. It really
Agreed.
is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and whether or not we were born with it, some of it I do know that I was kind of born with, which is more genetic, and then other things were kind of, I kind of scooped up,
Yeah. Yeah. Nurture
you know,
versus nature type stuff. Yeah.
right? There's some things.
Yeah.
So I the learning about things I'd kind of gotten, but I was in a blur in life. I was very foggy. I was numbing out a lot. I didn't know that I was being ruled by negative voices. So it wasn't
Interesting.
until I like got sober, because I would try and do things. I was trying to show up. I would try and do yoga. I would try and show up for things. I just didn't understand that like trauma and my brain and the voices in my head and the OCD and the ADHD. I did not understand that our subconscious mind is so much more powerful, that even if you will yourself to do something, your subconscious mind is going to reveal your wounds
Yeah.
until you heal your wounds. Oh, I
Yeah.
like that. Your subconscious mind is going to
Woo.
reveal your wounds until you heal your wounds. I
Yeah.
gotta remember to write this stuff down. That's
Editor's
another good
cat.
one.
Yeah, you gotta cut that off. That's a good one. That's Reels and
Oh,
TikTok
that's
right there, buddy.
so
That's great.
good.
Yeah.
So what happened was,
Yeah.
once I got sober, I wound up actually doing the work and integrating it and actually learning about contrary action and pausing more. So whenever I'm in fear, or whenever my anxiety goes up, or whenever something's getting triggered and the voices in my head are going up, I pause. And now if I behave with the fear, I'm going to usually yield more fear, or make a dumb decision, or date the wrong person, or get around the wrong
Interesting.
people, or sabotage something. But
Hmm.
when I pause and I release the limiting mindset, I release the fear. I do whatever work I need to do around it. Journal, meditation, affirmations, talk to someone, talk to a therapist, talk to a coach, be around people, whatever I need to do. When I release that fear, and I release the survival mindset is what that is. The survival mode, the fight, flight, fawn, and freeze. It works briefly, like when you get that trigger or that alert, if you need to run away from something, if you need to do something, it works, but you don't want to stay in it because otherwise you'll run toward it again. And that was. So we want to move ourselves from amygdala thinking, the fight, flight, fawn, and freeze, back into prefrontal cortex. So you pause. All of it takes is a pause, a process, let it pass, and then you proceed. And then now when I'm back into that abundant mindset, which can take like 20 minutes, sometimes it can take 2 minutes. And the more that you kind of practice it, the faster it'll get because you're changing your neural programming. You're changing your ski slope, your automatic responses. So my automatic responses now don't go to calling myself a piece of shit. I don't wake up with that voice in my head anymore. I really don't. Now my automatic responses are, hey, you've got this. You've been here before. You've done this before. You're safe. You know how to spot the solution. Brain, show me the solution. Because if we keep going with threat monitoring, brain, show me everything that's going to go wrong. You'll see everything going wrong, but you'll walk toward it too. And you might stay in that familiarity. So, when you have it and you have it come up, now I'm doing counter-reaction. Now, instead of running and gunning and doing this, and I got to do that, and it's pause, process, let it pass, then proceed. And now I'm going with the abundant mindset. What if everything works out exactly how it's supposed to? What if there's a lesson in this? What if I'm supposed to be here? What is this trying to show me? Am I supposed to heal something here? Is this a lesson? Yeah. Okay. If I were to behave like someone and be like someone that like honored and respected and cherished themselves, what decision would I make here? Is someone going against my boundary? Because I'm getting pinged. It's not about dismissing yourself. I'm getting pinged. There's something in my body going off, an alert system going off in my brain that's going, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Yeah. That's correct. There's something going off. So I'm turning off the alarm so that I can actually hear myself think clearly. Yeah. Turn that shit off. That's how we're getting back. And I'm like, okay, I got it. Voices in the hedge. Stop. I got it. And my Italian side comes out like, hey, all right. What do you?
Oh, I knew you had I got the vibe. I got the vibe that you had Italian.
The whole vibe. And Irish too. So they're both very like, what is this?
Yeah, right.
Oh my God. And so then it's like, okay, all right. Alarm bells are off. Now, what's the next right indicated action for my greatest good?
So really, I guess from hearing what you're saying, it's not turning your brain off. It's just turning the direction where you're going. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because your body and your brain and your mind, they're giving you signals for a reason. They scream at you only because you haven't been listening to them and you've been doing the opposite of what they've been screaming at. And you're not trusting yourself. And they're usually because you're telling yourself really nasty, mean things to yourself. So your body screams at you because it's trying to alert you. Hey, you're going back into a repeat pattern. You're about to do something that's a sabotage. You're escaping right now. I don't like this. You're not treating me well. That's the inner child wound that, enraged teenager later on. So we start learning how to listen to the pings because then the pings come up and it goes, oh, you know what? I'm actually around Betsy Sue and Betsy Sue's an a-hole and I hate Betsy Sue. And no wonder why my guard is going up because every time I'm around Betsy Sue, she literally is dismissive, disrespectful, and goes against everything I stand for. So I can either stand here and keep putting myself around Betsy Sue or go, you know what? Betsy Sue, I'm going to stop Betsy. Going to her cubicle.
Yeah, exactly. When my favorite thing is when someone reaches out and they say, okay, I just got diagnosed with ADHD. What do I do? It's like, okay, where do we start? I used to get so overwhelmed.
What do you want to do?
Yeah. But my go-to thing, let's see. But my go-to thing is always listen to your brain and stop fighting against it. And so what you're saying right here, right, is we're not trying to stop our brain from moving. Our brains are going to move. Our brains are going to ask questions. And it's not really the answers that we have because we think we might have all these answers. It's the questions that we're asking ourselves. So it's not like, holy shit, I need to be thinking of this right now because honestly, tomorrow an asteroid can strike down and I'm not going to be able to make it this. And then when I'm going late to work, I got to, but it's like, whoa, let's let our brain pause for a second. Let's let it pass. Let's let these thoughts, because this is how our brains work as just a human being as general, right? Our brains are going to move. But as an ADHDer, we're having everything come in once. And then we're just like, okay, let's have an ADHD moment, but let's just change the way that we're speaking.
Yes.
Instead of this shit talk. I love to say when I was working with people that were like, I just am just beating myself up, I always said, okay, let's try this. There was a study done where you probably heard of this study, but they were testing people that were trying to lose weight. And for the first month, they said, okay, we're just going to test people. We're going to have like a test subject that does nothing. The next test subject, all they're going to do is stand on the scale every single day. Nothing else. Absolutely nothing else. They're just going to stay on the scale. They started realizing that people were losing weight. And really what it was creating this like little thing that was in the back of your head and just kind of go plop and put it in the front here where you're thinking, okay, I'm looking at this number. You're subconsciously starting to do certain things where you're like, I'm gonna have one less bite. I'm gonna do this one extra step, right? And when I said when it comes to the mind, is I was like, here's the start. Stop telling yourself to stop talking shit about yourself. What I want you to do is just estimate how many times you say bad things about yourself. Is it 10? Is it 20? Give me an actual number. How many things and how bad is it? Now, what I want you to do is write down the top 3 that you say. Look at those and look at the opposite of that. So for example, like if there was a client of mine that was just like, I feel like I'm not smart. I'd say, okay, how many times do you feel like you say that? 20 times. Okay, so you think you're not smart 20 times. What I want you to do is create a action saying, an identity saying that means something more to you than just like, I am smart. Like something that really is, I'm smart because I do this and this and this. And most people I notice don't do that. Now, we're going to take that sentence and you talk bad 20 times. I want you to start your day by saying that 40 times. So what we're actually
Yes.
doing is we're watering down the negativity with positivity. And what this does to our brain, similar of the stepping on the scale every single day, is now that we've said it 40 times a day, we're going to look throughout the day. And when that thought starts to come up, this is actually the trigger that goes, oh, NLP, right? NLP anchoring.
Yes.
This is anchoring that thing and saying, wait a second, I've said this 40 times. I've said some great things about myself 40 times today. Am I really going to go off and say these bad things about myself? Now, it might change it from 20 to 10, but then that 10 might turn to 5. That 5 might turn to 2. That 2 might turn to 1. And really what we're trying to do is just water it down to the point where all of a sudden, this is a completely different cup of water that we're just saying these great things to ourselves. We're not stopping the brain. What we're doing is channeling that to something else that's completely different.
Yes, I do. Literally, I do the exact same thing in my coaching. I just say it slightly different.
Okay.
I do overcoming limiting beliefs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I have them do that. Like, what are the top negative voices? And then where I also add in like, why are they there? Because oftentimes people can try and like say the opposite, but they still notice that it's like they can't feel the opposite. They still,
Interesting.
so it's usually because from the ages of 2 to 10 up to 14, that's when our subconscious mind is being formed. And that's when those seeds got planted. Later on, we create a confirmation bias that goes, see, I knew it. I'm not smart. Look at that. But really it came from when you were a kid, you know, you compared yourself to your older brother or your younger sister or your whatever. Or you only felt like, you know, you received good love whenever you got good grades, and you know you had ADHD and you had trauma, and you didn't realize that like that blocks you from being able to even pay attention a lot of the times. And it's you know, they don't teach that in school. They just pill you.
Yeah.
So which is fine by being on medication. It's just knowing what the cause is and actually handling the underlying root instead of just self-medicating, because that can get dangerous.
Yeah.
So I do that where it's like, we'll find the root first. That way, you know, you can prove it wrong and be like, oh, that came from my mom, or oh, that came from my dad, or that came from my teacher. And they're not even right. They had their own trauma. And then that way, when you do say the positive, I call it the positive reality statement, the actual truth, that it's like, no, you are smart.
Yeah.
Like I was someone that didn't have street smarts, but I had a bunch of book smarts, and my brother was the exact opposite. And we would joke, but then later on what happened was he actually became extremely book smart now. I think he lost his street cred for sure. Might still have it. He still got it. But man, did I learn some street smarts. Oh my God.
That's awesome.
I'm 6 years clean and sober for a reason.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? And so you can learn these things. IQ, actually, studies found out a long time ago, IQ is not static. It's something that can grow. It's not a finite number. So you can actually change your IQ. You can change anything you want about your brain. It really is that powerful, and your body. And if you feel like you can't and you're like, no, but I can't change my nose through thoughts, then there's plastic surgery for that. And you can meditate and get a
Yeah.
good plastic surgeon. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, and then the other thing too that I like that you do is I always tell my clients this too is we can't just go in our brains and scoop out all the negative and like just take it all out. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Something's got to be there. Otherwise, you're going to have a big divot in your brain.
Mhm.
And what happens is if we have a divot and you're not replacing it, you're going to go back to your old programming.
Yeah.
The old channel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's got to be a channel on somewhere. So
Yeah.
we're learning how to like change the ski slope, change that programming, epigenetics, that kind of stuff, all the neurolinguistic programming.
Mhm.
And so I usually will have them start with like, even if I have a client who's in a toxic relationship, for instance,
Mhm.
I used to be the type of coach that I would get scared because I don't like anyone in pain. I feel it.
Yeah.
I feel that one deeply. I'm sure you do too. It's why we
Yeah.
do what we do. We
Exactly.
are feelers when it comes to this stuff.
Mhm.
But what was happening is that it was because I was scared of people being in pain, not realizing that my pain actually helped me with my purpose. And so why would I
Interesting.
rob someone of theirs?
Mhm.
And so now for the longest time, I've been able to be side by side as an empath too, like being side by side with people's journey and not taking away their pain with that codependency. Because if I take away your struggles, I take away your blessing. So
Yeah.
now it's when people are in toxic relationships, I'm not just going, you just got to get out of that. You got to run away from that. No, because you're going to run into it again later if we don't figure out what the spiritual lesson is now. So
Yeah.
the first step is always let's add in the good stuff first. Let's give yourself the nurturing and the stuff that you are looking for that you're feeling is not there, that you're feeling a lack in. Give that first. The way that you speak to yourself and that, and like, where are things? And then what naturally happens is the same thing with the food situation. The
Mhm.
more that you're giving yourself the good stuff and just paying attention to like some nice things, or it's naturally what happens is you make different decisions, start eating, stop escaping with food. You start being mindful with something. You don't realize that you're saying yes to something you usually used to say no to that's actually good for you. You
Mhm.
say no to something that's bad for you. And that next thing you know, a month's pass and you blink and you're like, I feel like a whole different person. How did that happen? And you'll
Yeah.
shock yourself with the way that you respond to something instead of react. And then by the time that you're ready to release the toxic person, you don't feel like that screaming inside of like, oh my God, I'm going to be lost without this person, or like, it's my fault, or, the negative voices, it's my fault. I'm not good enough. I'm not seen. I'm not important. You've
Right.
already filled your cup up so much that you go, wow, I see this person and where they're at and on their journey. And you know what? They're not willing to do the work on themselves. And I don't want to be at the detriment to myself anymore, because if I allow this toxicity in, I'm filling myself up with this toxicity. That's what I'm giving other people too that I love and care about, and they don't
Mhm.
deserve that.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you say, because you say that you work with men in relationships, right? That's really
Mm-hmm.
kind of your
I
circle
coach
of
women
coaching.
too, but it's just
Okay.
predominantly who comes to me is yeah, I mostly coach men.
Okay. So when you say like let's talk relationships and just neurodiversity as a whole, especially as an ADHD or myself, right? Like every new relationship I would get into, it was like, all right, so here's everything about myself. I'm going to tell you, I got ADHD. I've gone through this. This was a trauma.
Right?
Oh my gosh, there's this. When it comes to communicating, even in those like early stages in life, when you get into this new relationship type thing, when you have a client coming in and this person listening might have ADHD, they might have OCD, they might have all the anxiety, they might have just this like stress and as a whole. How do you say when it comes to those first stages of either just solidifying a date, making it clean, making
Yep.
it clear, making some comfortability, what would be like those? I love to go step 1, 2, 3. That's kind of my favorite thing when it comes to
Yeah.
how do we do that? How do we communicate between our ADHD or our mind inside of a relationship?
So here's the thing. Step one is, first and foremost, you're dating at first. That is a total stranger. They
Mm.
do not, and nor have they earned access to that information. Oftentimes, when we're oversharing information, it's because we still experience shame over it. And we're either trying to push someone away because we don't feel adequate enough, we don't feel good enough, and we feel like they're going to leave us anyway. Or we're trying to give them all of our flaws because we're nervous that when they find out that they're going to leave. So it's usually an abandonment wound or shame in there, because the more that you heal it, the more that you won't really talk about it, because there's other things to talk about. Because here's the other thing too. I don't need you to know that I have ADHD because I take care of me. I'm only going to need to say it if there's a boundary I need to set, or if there's something going on where because this person and I are now on date 4 or 5, or we've passed the 2-month mark, where I'm like, okay, cool. This person seems like a very like emotionally stable so far. It seems like I'm feeling safer with them. We've integrated a little more. Their pacing is good. They're listening to me on the dates. They're asking me questions. They're showing up. They're remembering things I told them. They're indicating signs. I'm asking certain specific questions on the dates that lets me know where they're at with their limiting beliefs. Because someone can have a really good heart, but if they talk to themselves like crap and treat themselves like crap, by accident, they're going to sabotage a relationship and sabotage their lives. So that means that it's like, pay attention to the way people are speaking and treating. And that's the first thing is when you first go on a date with someone, you're finding out, how do they speak about themselves? How do they speak about and treat themselves? How do they speak about and treat others? And then later on is, how do they speak about and treat me? And then you're also finding out by the third date, where are they at with what they're looking for, and do you align? If you're dating someone that's only looking for casual, but you're serious, you're out of alignment. And later on, if you guys get into a relationship, that person's going to go, I'm not ready. What the hell? I told you that. Like, what is this? Like, I had to leave. And then you're like, well, what happened? Well, the first date, they literally told you, I just got out of a relationship and I'm only casually dating. That didn't change. They didn't have any time to heal. They were getting high off of you, and the dopamine hits off of how good you were making them feel. Why would they heal their stuff? They can hide it and unpack it and now throw their trauma out in this. We don't mean to. People don't know that. So the stages are, first and foremost, meet your own needs first. That way you're not secretly needing other people to meet them for you and getting very disappointed when they can't. And that way, when you do ask for something and you do communicate a need, you really don't need them to meet it, because if they don't, and if they're not able to, you just know that it's just not the right fit for you. Right. Like for me, ADHD, for instance, if I'm with someone and they are dismissive and disregarding, that does not work for me. It's actually a very big boundary. And especially because my why is I grew up with that. And now later on, let's say that, for instance, I share something where I'm having difficulty making a decision, or I'm kind of feeling bad about something where I'm like, I'm avoiding something, or I'm having paralysis in an area. If I'm with someone and I let them know, I definitely, I have my ADHD. So these are the battles that I have. Yeah. If later on I'm, sharing something, or I'm sharing a struggle, I'm being vulnerable about something, I'm going to handle my own stuff. I've got 2 careers going. I'm more than capable. Like I'm good. Yeah. But if I'm sharing something with someone and then I'm sharing a vulnerability or a fear because I'm a human being and I want a partner, not a project, and I get someone that goes, oh, you're fine, or walk it off, or like, oh my God, you're being so dramatic, automatically that right there is like, I will give you one more chance. That is a very big boundary for me. Yeah. Because we all have different struggles and different hurdles. Our job is not to be perfect and learn how to be perfect, because that's impossible. Our job is to find the people that we're safe to make mistakes with. So I have things that I am overcoming. I'm wanting that partnership, because that way it's like, yo, this is a team. Where areas are you weak in? Which areas am I weak in? Every CEO knows this. You learn how to delegate tasks because you learn your strengths, and you celebrate your weaknesses, your quote unquote weaknesses. You celebrate the things that aren't your forte. We'll call it that instead of weaknesses, because I know people can feel off about that. Yeah. So if I'm sharing something and I get dismissed, and I hear that, and I hear dismissal, I've got one time where this is where I'll communicate. Now, by this time, it'll be like maybe a month or 2 in, something like that. And if that's something that happens early on, that's a flag on the play for me that will get put on alert. And I will let them know, hey, listen, it's very important for me to experience connection, and I don't do dismissal in dating and in relationships, especially. It's just not conducive to a healthy relationship. When I share something and it's being, dismissed, I'm coming to you and I'm being open and vulnerable, and I'm sharing something. Of course I'm going to be fine. I've been fine my whole life. I don't want to have to be anymore. Why I have to be guarded. So I'm sharing something with you. And in the future, when I'm sharing something, please be mindful that it's not being dismissed. And here's the other thing. Here's how we don't take it personally. When someone's being dismissive of you and disregarding of you, it's just an indicator that that's what they do to themselves. It's not an okay thing. It means that that's what they literally do to themselves, and that's where they're at on their journey. And if they're not willing to take a look at that and go, oh, shoot, you know what? And I actually had this happen recently. I shared this with someone. Someone did something, and I said, hey, that actually hurt me. And they said, oh, you're fine. And then
Woo.
and they could tell later on that I was like, I had to process that because I had an emotional response. So I had to pause and let my emotions pass. And they could tell, they're like, hey, are you later, like an hour later, they're like, are you mad at me? Did I say something wrong? And I was like, not mad at you. And they're like, can we talk about it? And I was like, I'm not ready to just yet. I need to process it first and find my words. And then once I do, we can absolutely. Few hours later, after I did my journaling, meditation on it, I figured out where it was from, why it bothered me, and like
Mm.
I was able to be neutral. So when we had the conversation, I was like, when I shared this with you, your response was this. And he went, oh my God. And I went, yeah. And I was like, that made me feel like this is cold. I don't want to be someone that runs away from things. I'm definitely communicative. And like for me, feeling safe with someone and when I share something, it being received is extremely important to me. You know, I don't do dismissal and I don't do things like, you know, being shut down and not being heard and not and my body or my mind not being respected. Respect
Mm.
is my number one core value. And so he was like, thank you for sharing that with me. That's not going to happen again. Like I hear you. And if it did happen again, then it would be something that I'd have to seriously consider this person not being in my life.
Yeah. And I'm throwing my girlfriend under the bus for a good time this one. When we both you have two people that come into life and they all have so much different experience, right? It's like we want to we're relating human beings. That's just what we do. And sometimes when we go, yeah, I know how that's like. I know what it's like. It's like, do you? Like, are you
Yeah.
really sure? And there's times where it's like we need to meet someone. The quote that my girlfriend said, and you've probably heard this quote in the dating world is me and you versus the issue. We're gonna look
Oh
at
yeah.
whatever is going on. And so it's like she's very open about her ADHD life, but she's had some trauma in her background. And when it's like things that I haven't gone through myself, we always have to have this reminder, and it's like the quote safe word or whatever of you and me versus this issue. So I may be acting like this, not because I am XYZ person, not because you are XYZ person. I have reacted in certain ways in my life because this is all I've known, and vice versa on the other side. And so having those conversations, I think as ADHDers especially, is that sometimes we get so quick into emotion or
Yeah.
defensive or rejection or fear
Yes.
or those things, right? Where we want to go into defense mode, whether that is, and it shows in so many different ways, right? It can be breaking down into tears, or it could be just like instant rage. It could be running away. It can be all of these things. And to be able to have this where you go, I'm so blessed to have what I have now in this relationship where we can look back and say, look, what is the real problem, and let's make you
What's
and me
really
a
going on
guess
here?
it, because now we're not trying to have a winner or a loser. We're not trying to win the argument, and I'm not trying to have you lose the argument. We're actually trying to defeat the issue here, or defeat the issue, or maybe just resolve what's going on and have this equal playing field. When it's like, hey, RJ, you say that I mentioned this 10 times to you. When you say the specific number 10, that hurts me. In my eyes, I'm like, oh, I want to know that she's heard it 10 times. So when you go back and forth and have this communication, instead of being like, well, you did it 10 times. Well, you stop saying it 10. It's like, oh, wait a second. When you hear a number, you go, wow, ouch, that hurt. Although that's not my intention. So when we have this like serious conversation of when you come back, when you talk about just like deeply thinking about how something meant to you, as people that have ADHD, sometimes we just want to respond, react, go, go, go. But when you say, look, you said this, I need to let this boil for a second. We'll finish the night, we'll be fine, whatever. I need to really think on why this happened, because now it's not, and I love to use just like very simple, you said this 10 times. It's not that it's just like, well, that's just a jerk thing to do. It's like, no, actually, here's why. When you
Yes.
say you said this 10 times, it makes me feel stupid because you said it 10 times. And then now I'm starting to have these self-conscious moments of how smart I am, and and here's all my other things that go on. And then you're like, holy shit, that makes so much more sense when we can come at this in the world of, okay, look, if your partner has ADHD, or if you have ADHD, sometimes it's we want to react, we want to go, we want to speak what it
Oh
is,
yeah.
but it's like, hey, let's take this second, and whatever you need to do, like go whatever. We love to call RJ time and Nadia time. Her name's Nadia. So
I
it's
love
like,
it.
I know, we go, hey, look, you know what, whatever just happened, I'm not upset or anything. I need to internalize whatever's going on, whether it's a stressful ass day and like, oh my gosh, it's freaking hot outside. I'm hungry. I'm this and
Right?
this. I need to go have RJ time 5 seconds. And then I'm like,
Yes.
dude, here's what it is. I really just wanted to go to Chick-fil-A. I don't really feel like eating here. And then it's like, oh, okay, we didn't even need to have an argument about that. But here's a question that I want to ask. Rejection is so hard when it
Yeah.
comes to life in general, but we have this
But
thing, this fancy
specifically
thing, right? The rejection
rejection
sensitive.
sensitivity.
Yeah, we're like, oh wow, we got a name for
Ooh,
it, right?
you're sensitive.
That is that is when I look back at being single, that
Yeah.
was probably the biggest fear, is that not only like, well, just go out there and get rejected, cool. But like when you're talking to
Right?
this
It's like,
ADHDer,
no.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
My body
no.
literally is like gonna have a trauma response with that
Right.
against
And
my will. But yeah, keep going, keep going, keep
there's
going.
so many different things when you say like in your past. There's this funny, I love to tell this story because it doesn't affect me anymore, but I'll
Yeah.
never forget, I was in high school and we used to go to the malls, me and my friends, we wanted to say what's up to some ladies, whatever.
Oh yeah.
And so this girl walks up to our group, she goes, oh hey, and I'm like, what's up? And she goes, ew, I wasn't talking to you. And I'm like, oh, like just like shat, right? I'm like, oh my gosh. And when I go through, when I look back, I'm like, that moment stuck in my brain for, I mean, geez, I don't even know how many years ago it was now. The fact that I still remember that moment.
Yeah.
When
That's
you
an
talk,
impactful moment.
yeah, when you talk about like as a male, especially with society, they say the word sensitive and male is like, oh no, don't say that
Oh,
when you're a
or
male,
yeah.
right? But it's like,
Can't be weak.
I know, in your eyes, right? As this, we have a ADHD male sitting at home listening to this, terrified just as all can be, to be rejected and to put himself out there. What would be that piece of advice that you could give him that could either help or can make him think in a different way, or it can help him with this ADHD journey and rejection sensitive dysphoria?
Absolutely. So, the main thing, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
The main thing is going to be writing down your boundaries already and starting that list of your boundaries. And if you're looking for women and you're looking to date, and women, this works for you too, writing out your ideal partnership and how you want to feel in them. Here's what's helped me the most with rejection sensitivity, and sometimes what I'll help others with, and what I coach on a lot is when you are around someone and they do something like that, we want to try and start practicing. You're still going to feel some type of way. And I want you to honor and respect that you do feel that type of way, because what happened there was very rude, dismissive, and downright disgusting.
Mm.
And it was because, I'll be honest, that was something that's probably the way that she's treated at home. Her mom speaks to her that way. I can pick this shit up like it's no one's business. Like I can tell everyone's childhood based on like the stuff that pings in you and the way that you speak. It's like I've been doing it for a while, since I was a kid. Yeah. So the number one thing is this: first, you want to have boundaries, and I want you to honor the way that you feel, because that's beautiful. That's really, it is a superpower, because what you will notice is that the sensitivity that you do have will make you faster at reading people in a room a lot, like so quick, it's not even funny. So what we do is we start practicing non-personal attachment. So when someone says something like that, feel it, honor it. Don't shame yourself for that. Do not push it down. You can inside go, damn, that's it. That didn't feel good and that wasn't okay. And then what you do is you add it to your boundaries. You know what? I don't like being around people that are disrespectful and just disgusting inside. I don't do well with disgusting human beings. I would never speak to someone that way. Or if I have, wow, how shitty did that feel? And now I know moving forward, I will not be doing that. So that becomes a boundary, and you go, that person, I did not deserve that. And that was rude. And you know what? And what I do next is, what we do is like an inner child reparenting. So if that's something that is a trigger for you and you keep noticing it, it's usually because it happened to you in childhood. And so those are the moments where you want to reparent, and you want to go, you know what? I really didn't deserve that then. I don't deserve it now. I'm going to speak to myself a lot better. In this moment, what do I need? And how do I meet that need? So the main thing that you want to do is you want to look at your core needs, and you want to start filling up your own cup. So if you keep getting around people who say nasty things and are disrespectful and dismissive, then you might want to look at, like, in what ways and what areas? Are you disrespectful and dismissive of yourself? And do you say nasty things to yourself? Because by accident, we're getting around that which we are familiar with. Because you're
Mm,
treating yourself that way, you're going to be prone to being around that a little more. And the
yeah.
fastest way through it is by treating yourself the way that you deserve to be treated as a child. And
Right.
so you start with a list of the core needs and the things that you needed from childhood or the things you needed instead. So you honor the fact that that's not okay, that it did hurt you. And of course, because you're a human being, that's not a weakness, because the faster that you can see yourself and feel your feelings, the faster that you won't shove them down, screw them away, masturbate them away, eat them
Mm,
away, overwork them away, punish them away, drink them away, snort them away. And the
mm,
faster that you won't get around toxic relationships moving forward. Um,
interesting.
yes. So then that way, when you feel it, you'll actually be able to, the more effectively you see yourself, the more effectively you will see others. And the pain in you will always spot the pain in others. It'll just accidentally walk towards more of it. But the healing in you will recognize the healing in others, and you will absolutely learn to walk more towards it. So honor the fact that that was a disrespectful moment and you don't deserve it. It's not your responsibility how people treat you. The
Yeah.
faster that you give yourself the good stuff, the faster you'll be kind of out of it. Add that to your boundary, and start looking at who are the people that you are around that make you feel safe and wonderful and great, and like you can speak and say funny things and they love you and they admire that, and you feel safe. Write down the qualities on the list of the things that you do like and that you do vibe with. That's going to become your yes list. And then the things that are like, this doesn't feel good, yeah, it's straight, that's your no list. That
Ah,
work for me. And moving forward, when I'm around that, I ever feel that will be immediately removed in my life.
I
That way,
love
I make
that.
better decisions. I have better people in my circle. And when I have better people in my circle, the people that I love get better people too. But
Yeah. That is the way that our ADHD brain works. We're very intuitive, right? We are very
yes,
good at understanding ourselves. We're really
honor
good at
that shit.
I
Yeah.
know. But we're so good at understanding others. And I think to wrap up everything, I mean, even some of the things that you have said, really to kind of put it into a sentence, is just to make the things that are already in your head be alive somewhere, right? It's like when you said that, it
Yes.
blew my mind. I totally forgot it, that I did this thing. Every time I went through every relationship, whether it was a fling or talking to whatever, I had this whole list of things that were like no-nos for me and things that was like yes for me. And I had like stars, like 4 stars next to things that's like I totally
Yes.
fuck with this, and then like 5 X's next to like if she even says that, I have to go. And it helped me so much. It's so crazy that you say this, because it helped me so much when it came to dating, to when I did find the person that I believed to be the one. Was holy shit, it was like boom, 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 boom. It was
Oh my
like it
God.
was just
Yes.
written out right there. So really, and I don't want to misquote you, but if it's like to have it live, like these are the things that work for me when it comes to being anxious. Like if I need to transition from being really pissed off on set to actually being in a good mood, I need to understand my triggers to be in a better mood, and I need to understand my triggers to be when I'm not in a bad, or when I get in a bad mood. And then also
Yes.
understanding, look, I don't mind when a girl says this on a date. That doesn't bother me a whole lot. But when she says this, that really gets to me as an individual, and that needs to be okay with me. It's like that healthy form of selfishness that you need to have, that little bit of like, I need to care about myself enough to understand what's going to help me and what's going to hurt me. So
Exactly. And
to
so dating is a discovery.
oh,
Dating
I
becomes a
love that.
discovery. That
Yeah.
way, when you do feel something, that's why I'm saying is that it's like honor your intuition and honor those emotions, because those are valid and you actually do want to feel those, because and the reason why it hurts the most is because you might keep being around people that are like that. So your body is trying to reject it. That's why we
Mm.
have the rejection sensitivity. Oh my God, this is coming to me right now.
Woo! Write it down.
Wow,
Clip
I've
it. Clip
never
it.
said it this way.
Say it again. Say it again.
We have rejection sensitivity because that is your body's way of trying to tell you that there is a rejection happening. If there's something
Mm.
negative that's going on, absolutely. It's going to be something that like it's not good for us. We're going to feel it more intensely if we don't heal it and heal why it's there and heal why it keeps getting repeated. If we have people that have dismissed us a lot, and so that makes us nervous to approach people. First, identify 5 people that are safe in your life and how they make you feel. And I want you to start identifying when you're around people what they feel like to your system, to your nervous system. Take deep breaths in. And I promise you, you will pick up faster around people, whether or not there's someone that's emotionally avoidant, distant, and which would quote unquote reject, but they're not rejecting you. They're just not even freaking present to the world. They have their own pain. So they're not, if they can't see themselves, they're not going to be able to see you. If they're dismissing themselves, they're going to accidentally dismiss you. So the faster you can listen to your sensitivities, the faster you'll be able to actually go, this person's present. This person makes me feel the same way that actually 5 of my friends make me feel, which is very grounded, and my nervous system feels really good. Here's something else too that I'll admit. I still experience rejection sensitivity. And so, for instance, mine usually manifests when I have to share something or share a boundary. I get very nervous that when I share something that's important to me, that I'm going to be dismissed. It still scares me. I still have to show up for it. I know without a shadow of a doubt that I'm a badass woman, not because I want to be. I was sensitive as a kid. I cried over everything. And then for like 20 years, didn't drop a tear. I've been through some gnarly stuff. I've been hit, I've jumped, I was involved in the protest. Like there has been some things, I have seen some things. I've jumped in front of other people to protect them so they didn't get hit, and I took it. And so it's like, I've been through some stuff. Yeah. And that does, so when I say this, I say it to say that it's like, remind yourself of all the things that you've already overcome, because you already are a badass. You've already lived through 100% of the things that you've been through. Duh. Yes. And so me knowing today that I don't do well when people are dismissive is a superpower. So yes, I've shared my stuff and I've shared vulnerabilities, and I've literally been manipulated by it, taken it, thrown it in my face. So absolutely, when I go to share something with someone, damn straight, my brain's going to go, is this person safe? And this is what I tell myself. I don't know, but you know what? I've learned something so powerfully every time I've experienced this and shown up for it, that you know what? If this person isn't safe for me to share my vulnerability, then they're fucking out. Yeah. And that's that. Because I'm not going to tolerate being manipulated or being abused anymore. Now, I've healed that wound, so the people in my life aren't. But I showed up recently to someone and had to speak a boundary. And I was like, and I shared it first. And I said, listen, I will admit this, and I will say this. This is harder for me to share this with you and to bring something up, because there's a part of me that I am in fear that it will be dismissed. So I'm just stating that because it's just a fear, and I'm getting that out of the way. So anyway, when X, Y, and Z happened, this is how I received it. This is how I felt by it. And I don't do well with that in my life. I really value connection. I really value communication, and I really value being seen and being heard, because that's how I want to treat you too. Yeah. So moving forward, if this can be worked on, I would really appreciate it. Now, afterwards, because I was still shaky a little bit, a little nervous, and I got a little emotional. And I know right now I could jump in front of
flip the hair, get the shit out. Yeah,
I can literally, I'm like throwing my thing out. I can jump in front of things that are very scary. I've been involved with situations that like, I had to get someone to the hospital very fast. There were guns involved, knives involved. There's been like, I've seen some things happen, and things that have happened to me where it's like everything slows down. And I'm definitely one of the ones, like, I'm Irish and Italian. I'm definitely one of the ones, and my friends know this, that when things hit the fan, I'm the one to call. And so that doesn't, but I don't get to control what trauma response comes out when I get triggered. I know how to move out of it. I know how to get out of dissociation. I know how to get out of those things. That takes some time. Tapping, grounding, looking for the colors that you love. When you're in threat monitoring mode, curiosity bypasses threat monitoring. There's different things. I know that I can trust that. So sometimes there's going to be a freeze response. That happens. Sometimes I'm going to fawn. Sometimes I'm going to people please because there's a thing. That's okay. The fastest way, and what I did afterwards, especially after the conversation, is I just sat with myself and I went, man, Natalie, I am so flipping proud of you. You showed up for that. And even though you were worried and you had an abandonment wound that got triggered, and, the hypersensitivity and the rejection sensitivity was there, you showed up. Yeah. Man, you showed up. Yeah. And look what happened. You got to see that someone was either for you or not for you. And that's huge. And that's powerful.
Yeah. Either way, it's like, if you find out someone in your life is not supposed to be there, it's just as big of a win. Maybe, in my opinion, even bigger of a win than having someone that's right in your life, because it's like, you are really the sum of the 5 people that you really are close with. Yeah. And so if you're looking at this and it's like, holy shit, I need to get this out. It's like, wow. Although that was hard, it was so worth it. so worth it.
Thank you, body, for vibrating at me and vibrating in a frequency that let me know that something wasn't okay.
Yeah.
And that, I showed up for it. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
for letting me know. Thank you for letting me know, body and mind, that like this person was out of alignment with me. I
Yeah.
hear you.
Yeah. That's great. Natalie, thank you for sharing. I know with you saying that sometimes it can be difficult. It's great that we can get this platform to share it to other people that can relate or go through something. I want to end it off with asking one question with a simple answer. Well, it doesn't have to be simple, but short as you can get.
A simple answer for someone with
I know the
ADHD.
second I was like, wait, I gotta
Oh
pull
my
that one
God.
back. If I gave you a microphone that echoed to the entire world and you're
I would talk all
speaking,
the time,
yeah,
nonstop.
it
I
has
would
a
say
timer.
I would sing like a canary.
All the Eminem
What is it
songs
called?
are gonna be going off your head till I collapse. You got the whole
It would
thing.
be a really weird, like, go from rap to stand-up comedy to truth to like politics to overpowering to overcoming limiting belief. We would do all of the things.
Okay, this microphone allows 1 second and it cuts off. You're
Oh,
talking to the ADHDer that potentially is going through addiction, that's potentially going through rejection, that's potentially in this weird relationship that they're really struggling in. You have this one thing, and I'll give you as much as time as you need to think about it. You have a sentence to say. What do you say to those people?
I'm trying to find the right words where it's not discounting and it's also not like there's a part of me that keep going. You're going to win.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
You're going to win. And because I don't want to say it's going to make you a badass, because some people go, I don't want to be a badass.
Yeah.
But it will. Keep going. Like your purpose, like this is going to have you succeeding beyond your wildest dreams. It doesn't make sense right now, and it doesn't have to. Get around the people who are find the people that are safe.
Yeah.
Get around the people who are actually safe for your nervous system.
Mm.
Get around the people who empower you and inspire you and do not belittle you. That'll be like, start to teach your body how to feel safe. Game changer.
Beautiful.
But you
Natalie,
will win.
thank you so much. Where can everyone find you? Instagram, TikTok, give us
In
everything.
these streets. No, you can find me. Help. No, I'm kidding. You can find me on Instagram. I'm mostly on Instagram at Natalie Stavola, Nataliestava, V as in Victor, OLA. I'm on all social media platforms, YouTube as well. I think it's Natalie Stavola Coach, although I need to be one. My website is lovecoach247.com. I just came out with a program called How to Get the Girl. So this is for anyone who wants to authentically learn how to deepen connections and meet quality women and actually keep quality women, a bunch of women, as many as you want, but the quality way, the respectful way, all of it. And so that program's out. You can get that online, or you can just DM me. I'm big on that. I do lives on Instagram as well. I try and give the information back as much as I can. So I do live Q&As. I love interacting. I love giving back to community. And then you'll see my filmmaking things on there too. I'm very big on overcoming your obstacles and being an example of like just loving and falling in love with your life. And then I get to pass that on to other people as well. So main one would be Instagram and website.
Cool.
And yeah.
Awesome. We'll be sure to put all this in the description wherever we're going to be putting this on podcasts and Spotify and everything. So, Natalie, thank you for coming on, and we will let you guys 2 out the day. Bye.